Hello there, my name is Pavoshtermo, and now we'll unveil the top news of recent days. The Peace Summit ended yesterday, and we can already talk about the first results. The very first, the final communique was signed by 78 countries and 4 organizations. All of them agreed on a common position on 3 points: food security, nuclear and energy security, and the release of all captured and deported Ukrainians, adults and children abducted by Russia. The summit allowed each of the participants to demonstrate global leadership. Essentially, this event is the first step forward to a just peace based on the UN Charter and the basic principles of international law. In the communique itself, the summit participants emphasized that the use of nuclear energy and nuclear installations must be safe, secured, safeguarded, and environmentally sound, and that Ukrainian nuclear power plants and installations themselves, including Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant, must operate safely and securely under the sovereign control of Ukraine and under the supervision of the International Atomic Energy Agency. The joint communique also contains a clause on the uninterrupted manufacturing and supply of food products. Attacks on merchant ships, civilian ports, and civilian port infrastructure are unacceptable. The communique emphasizes that food security must not be weaponized in any way. Prisoners of war must be released through a full exchange, and all deported and illegally displaced Ukrainian children and civilians must be returned home to Ukraine.
We are responding to Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, not only with a full-scale defense of human life, but also with full-scale diplomacy. These days, united 101 countries and international organizations, big success for Ukraine and for all partners. And our fair objective is to get all countries of the world join this noble cause. Previous political generations have left us the UN Charter as a basis for the cooperation of peoples. We will pass to the next generations an effective mechanism to implement the UN Charter, and the communiqué adopted at the summit these days fully reflects our intention and remains open for accession by everyone who respects the UN Charter.
The Peace Summit concerned 3 of the 10 points of the peace formula that Volodymyr Zelensky presented in November 2022 during the G20 meeting in Indonesia. The work on the remaining points will continue together with the international community in working formats determined at the summit. And only with time we will see the real results of this summit, and in fact this was one of the turning points in stopping Russian aggression. Before the start of the summit, Putin made a statement that he also has a peace plan to return all captured territories to Russia, and also the cities of Kherson and Zaporizhzhia. You see, the Kremlin dictator has nothing about denazification or demilitarization. He just wants new lands. By the way, Putin also accused Ukraine of not fulfilling the Minsk agreements, and we have an answer to this, as human rights defender Pavlo Oysensky wrote. It was Moscow, not Kyiv, that violated the previous agreements, and we are not even talking about a full-scale invasion or the Budapest Memorandum, but rather Russia did not fulfill the Minsk agreements. Since 2019, the Russian Federation began issuing passports to residents of temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine and began changing legislation for passportization of the Russian Federation back in 2017. This is a direct violation of the Minsk Agreement. Since 2016, the Russian Federation has launched a project in the occupied territories of Luhansk and Donetsk regions called Russia and Donbas Integration Committee. The project was aimed at the operational integration of the so-called LPR and DPR into the Russian Federation. This again is a direct violation of the Minsk agreements. In 2021, the Russian Federation held elections of deputies to the State Duma of Russian Federation in the temporarily occupied territories of Luhansk and Donetsk regions. This again is a direct violation of the Minsk agreements. And in 2021, the Russian Ministry of Defense began the formation of paramilitary forces according to the system of combat army reserve personnel from among men who lived in the occupied territories. Again, a direct violation of the Minsk Agreement. Starting in 2019 with the distribution of passports to citizens, the process of forming the Russian army reserve in the occupied territories began. This is a direct violation of the Minsk Agreement. Starting from 2020, the Russian Federation has closed all checkpoints on entry and exit of the occupied territories of Donbass with the territory of Ukraine. This is a direct violation of, again, Minsk agreement. Since 2015, a single currency was announced in the temporarily occupied territories of Luhansk and Donetsk regions, the Russian ruble. This is a direct violation of the Minsk agreement. And at the end of 2020, in the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine, the ideological concept of future military aggression of the Russian Federation was presented, the doctrine Russian Donbass, which called for the annexation of the southeastern regions of Ukraine. This is a direct violation of the Minsk agreements. This is not a complete list of all violations of the Minsk agreements by the Russian Federation. What the dictator says is, as always, a lie. The Kremlin probably thinks that no one remembers those facts of Russian violations of Minsk agreements. But this is not so. Ukraine remembers, and if something happens, it will remind all international partners. Swedish Air Force intercepted a Russian military aircraft violating Swedish airspace east of Gotland Island. It happened on Friday. Swedish Armed Forces informed on social network X. A Russian Su-24 fighter jet violated Swedish airspace east of the southern tip of Gotland. The Russian plane was warned by a verbal challenge from the Swedish Air Combat Command. When this was not taken into account and the aircraft did not change the course, it was intercepted by Yas-39 Gripen fighter.
The Russian act is unacceptable and shows a lack of respect for our territorial integrity. We followed the entire process and were there to intervene. Jonas Wigman, commander of the Swedish Air Force.
The last time Russia carried out such an unauthorized flight was in 2022, when 2 Russian Su-27s and 2 Russian Su-24s violated Swedish airspace, also over Gotland. I will remind you that last Monday, a Russian military plane violated Finnish airspace. It was the first such move since the Nordic country joined the NATO alliance last year. The plane flew into Finland airspace for about 2 minutes. The incident happened in the eastern part of the Gulf of Finland, with the aircraft reaching as deep as 2.5 kilometers into Finland's territory. In Finland itself, the latest such incident happened in August 2022, when 2 Russian fighter jets flew into its airspace. After the start of the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine, NATO strengthened its air defenses on the eastern flank. During 2023, NATO air forces across Europe intercepted Russian warplanes more than 300 times. On February 29, 2024, NATO aircraft intercepted 2 Russian Su-30 fighters and an An-72 transport aircraft over the Baltic Sea. Now also the region has seen a hybrid war with Russia suspected of jammed GPS signals in the region, among other developments. Most of the GPS jamming issues are clustered in Eastern Europe in parts neighboring Russia, including its Kaliningrad exclave. It should be noted that Russia has not claimed responsibility for the GPS jamming. This may be part of the hybrid war designed to cause inconvenience and inflict pain while maintaining plausible deniability and avoiding retaliation and open conflict. And this concludes our today's video. Thank you for watching. Stay updated, comment, like and subscribe to our UATV English channel for more news from Ukraine. It is your support that really matters. Goodbye.